that.
Yeah.
Did we get reduced?
It's on the.
No, we're actually getting an increase. I don't know how much. I see it on the budget committee paperwork. I know we're getting an increase, but I don't know. They say they talk to all the department heads, but nobody talked to me about it, so. We ready? Are we on?
You are live.
Oh, we're on. Okay. You have to. Yes, you have to. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, okay. So the reason why I wanted to have this meeting was actually twofold. We had talked a few times, and then there have been a few emails that have gone back and forth about getting training. It's very difficult to sit in a meeting, and I know that, you and Mike were two that I talked about this, but it's very difficult to sit in a meeting and be asked to make legal determinations without any training in how to go about making that legal determination. So I did reach out to, actually to Jen, and she got with Stacy to find out how much we had in the budget, but Stacy was wrong in the number because she's new. But so we don't have that $700 and change dollars.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Apparently-
Got reduced or something got reduced.
Well, apparently they had only budgeted us for training last year $200, which doesn't go far when you have 6 people sitting on a board. But $200 is what they budgeted for us, and Dawn and I went early, right after, I think it was August. We went up to that MMA training together. It was, I think, $55 a piece is $110, so we have $90 in our training budget, which is not going to take us far, unfortunately.
That's a big thing, isn't it? You can't get to ask questions or anything.
It's huge. There was probably, when Dawn and I went, I mean, we did get a good, I have to say, and that's why I said in my email to the two new fellas that we got a kind of a basic feel for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But there were probably 200 people there, and the training is planning board / appeals board. Dawn and I both felt it was very much more geared toward planning board. The couple of questions that we did bring up, they were very interested in and wanted to know how we wound up finding those cases, and we did tell them, but very much so they just kept referring us to the fact that these are board decisions. That, the board has to make those decisions, and every board is different. There is no way to actually tell you, and then they kind of referred us to, we should be having training more from our town attorney on different things, but I can't afford that, okay? So, I mean, I'm just telling you the way it is.
No, I would say that's kind of what I would think. I mean, that I'd rather have a town attorney here and ask him questions. Because that's the way I learn anything is read it anyway.
Yeah,
But if you have questions,
you have
need
no
it
way.
clarified and
So we did have a session with the town attorney, but it was obviously none of you were on there. I was here, and I tried to let.
what's he cost an hour, Paul?
$250.
$250 an hour?
And it wasn't this one. It was Bernstein Ashore, I believe, that came, right? Yeah, it was Bernstein Ashore, which was a lot cheaper, like
Bernstein and who?
$250 too.
they charged $250.
Depending which one you get, but Amy's.
What's their
Yeah.
names? Bernstein and
Oh, Woodson and Drummond are
We
now
got some
our
firms that we can work.
the other guys, what was their name?
Bernstein Shore. Yeah. So, you all right?
Oh yeah, just allergies.
So, so basically, you know, I've asked, to be heard as far as training. They did let me go up and speak to Amy for a couple hours. They got a few things out of the way, like I wasn't really sure, as the chairman, I wasn't really sure what right I have to ask somebody to stop screaming and hollering during a board meeting, you know, and that was,
You mean board members?
yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I wasn't really sure on my ability or how to go about stopping that from happening. So I did work quite a bit with Amy on that, and I don't believe they took it out of our budget because
Who is Amy?
she is the attorney at Woodson and Drummond that kind of deals with land use stuff for us. But I did go up and talk to her for a couple hours, and I don't know where they took it out of because it didn't come out of my budget because I didn't have only but $90 apparently, but
Could I ask just who was the person who was screaming?
no, because they're not here, and I don't feel right, you know, talking about it without them being here to actually defend themselves. But they are still an active member of the board, and things have been better. So, but
I just wouldn't have expected that. I mean, I could understand, and this is just my opinion, I understand like a person of the town that comes in and has a complaint being emotional.
They scream.
Right.
But we're all grown
they
adults.
scream too.
I would think
So
it's-
I've actually only had one ever yell at me, so I guess I'm doing pretty good. But so from looking at the budget committee book, because I haven't been able to get anybody to talk to me or to us about that budget, I see that they're giving us 400, I believe is the number, for training next year. And I just don't think that's not even 2 hours with an attorney for training. You know, I don't think that that's enough. So I want to kind of leave that with you guys to chew on and see what you think, but
Are we bound to have to use a particular attorney? Or can we search for another one that would be more economically sound for the amount of funds that we have for training?
So interesting enough, part of the conversation I had months ago about this was that maybe we shouldn't, because the town attorney protects the town.
Okay.
But the appeals board, while a board of the town, is actually very separate, because we may be asked to hear cases that the town code.
Against the town, yeah.
Right.
Right.
So,
But maybe they have a paralegal who's very well versed. They cover a lot of stuff for the law offices. That
Probably,
they may be able
problem
to-
is the attorneys don't agree. They don't agree on that.
right, attorneys never, you can get two attorneys in the same room and they're arguing. But you know, the whole thing is that I don't have the authority to call somebody up and say, will you come and talk to us and have this training? I can't do that. I'm not allowed. I don't have,
Oh, that's interesting.
you know, I mean, I have gone to appeals board hearings in other towns, and they, you know, I don't know what their process is, but they say, we're not comfortable with this, we're gonna have to get the town attorney to come in and sit in here. I don't know if the chairman calls, or I don't know if they go then to the selectmen. I don't know what their process is, but I've been trying to be interested in watching more appeals board hearings, because I don't like to be told by everybody, rather than board members, code enforcement. I don't want to be told by everybody that we're wrong. Somebody has to think we're doing a good job somewhere, and
Well, of course,
you know.
that's, everything's a matter of interpretation. you know,
Exactly.
And, you know, therefore, everybody has their opinion. That's probably one of the big problems with the country.
Yeah.
You know, there's no authority. And, which simply means there's no authority in the law either anymore, because there's so many veritable interpretations of.
And then you go to a judge and he upholds you, and then you go to another judge and they reverse it, and then it's I mean, to me, it just seems like it's a big, huge money sucking
I don't
system.
know if we should be overly concerned with trying to interpret the law, because we should probably to me, the emphasis should be on making a good decision based on what we think is legal and ethical.
So that is what I always thought too, okay? And then, but when I read the appeals board ordinance, the law of this town that the people voted, and when I read the directions and guidelines by the state, which is what I was given this manual for
Yeah,
land use and
I've
appeals
read-
board.
I've read some
So
of
I have this, and then I mean, I don't know what Maine Municipal Association's authority is even to guide us on this. I mean, they're not a state agency,
They're
you know, which has been put on my plate a couple of times.
All they are is another interpretation, and you
And
know,
that's what-
again, I think it comes back to us, you know, we have to make a decision whether it's legal and whether it's ethical, and whether it's humane. But see, now the problem is, when I read these regulations, the concept of being humane, it's not there.
It's not there.
It's not there, you know, if they want a black and white, they want you to be a machine that
Well, and I,
double checks, you know, what they've already decided.
and I've been told that our job is to say no. No, 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 no. And I don't understand why, and this is part of why I felt the need to have some questions asked. I don't understand why they need to put 6 of us in here to say no, 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 no. If that's the case, get rid of the appeals board and just send it to
Well,
the judge, because the judge isn't always gonna say no.
Right, you
you
might
know.
as well go right to the source, the guy that's gonna make the final judgment, that's my thinking too, I mean, but the bureaucrats have decided that, you know, they have to have a group of citizens, you know, stamp their work, you know, and I guess that's what the purpose we serve that purpose. And they probably, depending on the person, probably likes or dislikes the way a board does things, you know, like my son has been on the appeals board in Wells, and I've thrown out a couple of the cases I've witnessed here lately, and he basically said on both of them that they would have made the same decision probably.
So,
Like
and that's
the-
what
like the
I'm seeing
generator.
too, is that, you know, my problem seems to be following these hardship criteria. Because they say in these laws, you have to meet all 4 of these hardship criteria.
And that's
I
the state
think-
law, that's the
yeah,
state law,
and
that's
I-
not an optional thing.
And I think that
But
the
it's
wording
also,
is so vague.
but it's also, that's why we're here, for our interpretation of how it
Of
applies.
this, right?
And our decision based off of that. And that's where you talk about whether it's humane or not, I mean, that's what we determine.
Yeah.
How it's based off of, how it's.
Right, and
I mean,
so
there are-
our most recent case, certainly if there had been 1, 2, 3 abutters that had been here that had an issue with it,
That would've
you know,
been
it would have,
major problem.
I think it would have
It-
been a different story.
Exactly.
And you know,
Well, even the state was kind of soft, you know, when they came back on that one, as far as I'm concerned, the state kind of was soft. In
yeah,
other words, it's okay with us, you know, basically, they didn't
not
come out and
bothering you.
say that, but they
Right.
basically said, we don't have a problem with it, so.
Right. And so I think, you know, that was part of my consideration too. And my only worry about that was that, you know, the back and forth conversations that were had and stuff. And I felt that it got a little bit tougher with, you know, as time went on, like their rendition of it. So I don't know. I mean, like when we submit something to the state, do they then, you know, who are they calling here? You know, I just don't know. So my thought was this, we
They
had
won't
talked,
talk to you as the chairman of the state?
apparently not, I mean, I used to, actually call Mike after the fact, when Mike was there. I would call Mike after the
Who's
fact,
Mike?
because he used to be the guy that wrote our determinations. And I would call him and say,
This is the state guy?
yeah, at DEP, and he would send a determination. I try not to read it until I'm reading it into the record. I really do try not
What
to.
does he do? What's his,
He's not there anymore.
is the position there? Is somebody else?
Yes, that's that new girl, Dawn.
But
That,
she's not rendering any decision, is she?
no, not like he used to. He used to give us, I don't think that this should happen because of this, but the board might find that it could happen because of that. I mean, he was pretty thorough and he was
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, his determinations were usually a page or two, not like just mimicking the state law on a piece of paper for us, which was no help, I thought.
What did she write? I can't recall what she wrote on the last one.
She just wrote that, she felt that, that he was right about calling the generator a structure. That was her.
But then the DEP basically said, we don't care.
Well, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife said they didn't care.
They didn't-
That
it wasn't
it wasn't an issue
wasn't
with
an
them.
issue with-
And that, to me, that would have been the big issue if they had had a problem with it,
Yeah.
But DEP, her determination, which is, like I said, Mike used to give us all the reasons and it was very helpful when we were having a deliberation, but all she wrote was, yep, it's a structure, which was no help to me at all
But she's
personally,
new?
but
She's new?
Yeah.
How new?
I don't know. I guess she did this job prior in another area of the state, but now I don't know if she's there permanently or until, I don't know, because I don't get any answers. I used to get answers all the time from the former guy, Mike, and then, I'd try not to read his determination, and then I'd come into meeting and I'd read it, and then I'd call him up and I'd say, well, like, that was really, really good. I understood that and it helped a lot. And then after the fact, we're required to send our if DEP is involved, we're required to send them back a determination, because now they then have the chance to ask us for reconsideration. But, so when I'd send it back to him, I'd call him up and I'd say, that was really helpful, and we found this way because of this in your determination. Or I'd call him up and say, what the heck was that? So, which I did
They'll
sometimes.
talk to you then.
He did, but I haven't, they talk to Jen now. I don't know. That Dawn, she talks to you.
Dawn, she's in,
Dawn Hurd,
yeah, she's in Augusta,
yeah, so I don't know.
so she was like Michael's boss, and then the other guy, Kurt, I think his name was. I have to look it up, he's her boss.
Yeah, so basically I don't know.
As far as I'm concerned is with the state, and I've dealt with them 5 years on the planning board, and I've been in business for 40, and I had to deal with them. Usually, they're less rigid than the towns on things, and sometimes, at least they indicated to me that they wish the towns would leave them alone and make their own decisions because they're so busy.
Yeah,
And the towns get them into a lot of nonsense. So, I don't, but when I was on the planning board, and I've seen it on other boards, that people seem like almost terrified. They sometimes say it's the state, state.
yeah, the state is oftentimes easier because they have no preconceived notions and they have no agenda and they have no alliance.
Right,
They're just,
they're independent.
yeah, and they
more
come down, they
independent.
just wanna make sure everything's fine,
Yeah, and
they're not really.
Our last subdivision that we did in Wells, we had to get the state actually intervened for us with the federal government and helped us to get that subdivision through. The federal government was making it hard on us, and so the state came in and helped us, so, and then, like I said, they were much more lenient than the federal government. In this case, down on the marsh in Wells, the federal government owns all that, so
Oh, yeah,
you get into it, but to me, no matter what you do, ultimately, the buck stops with the judge. with the state,
That's right.
you know, and if they don't like what you do, they're not gonna put you in jail. Paul, what can they do to you? As if you're a board member, appointed board member, the state can't.
They just overturn your decision.
Yeah, that's right, it's okay.
And I mean, my feelings wouldn't be hurt if they overturned something I did, and because ultimately, if I had a problem, where am I going? To the judge. So if I trust them with my own decisions, if they overturned something that we did or said as a board, my feelings wouldn't be hurt. It would just be okay. And that's why I'm pretty. It's one of the few things that I really point out is that if you don't like our decision, or if a resident doesn't like our decision, or if a board member doesn't like our decision, you always can ask for reconsideration at the court, as long as you were a part of the meeting. Because, for example, a resident that says, well, I didn't go to the meeting, but you approved that and I don't want it. Your time for public hearing was during that meeting, and usually they will not even hear it at court level because they didn't come to the
Yeah, they didn't
appeals.
participate.
Yeah, so.
I read so much about it on the internet that I've forgotten where I read it, but the state in one of their documents had a warning to the officials, town officials. Don't hem the boards in to the point that you discourage the members, because you won't have any members that, and I think there's a certain truth there too.
There is, because I'm very discouraged, but that's kind of why I felt that these monthly meetings were important, because I hear you guys. I mean, and I keep saying you guys because there are no other women on the board, but I keep being told not to say you guys, but or the guys.
You're Superwoman, aren't
But yeah,
You're Wonder Woman.
no, I'm exhausted sometimes. But I hope you don't take offense to that, you guys, because I say you guys because I'm the only woman. The rest are all guys, and it's just easier for me. But if it bothers you, just to please, just let me know, and I won't do it anymore. I was looking at our appeals board ordinance, and I mean, they're talking about some things we don't even have here in town, like stenographers. Jen would like a stenographer, but we do not have one. But I wanted to, I was really interested in looking at this and maybe asking for help in rewriting some of this, but I came in to talk to Chip about this, and I guess a lot of it is being incorporated into his land use, and I don't know. And then I said, we have some issues with some other things, like the state laws and stuff, and he said, well, what are you gonna do about it? And I said, well, we're people, and if we decide we don't like something strongly enough, and we could petition to have it changed, and I was kind of told it.
Of course you know.
It was being ridiculous, so.
The wording on some of those hardship clauses is kind of troubling.
Yes, it is.
But there's really no trouble until the judges start overruling it. Then there's trouble, because you got two heads butting, but as long as it's paper, and they're leaving you alone, then it's.
And I don't think, I haven't heard any, just besides in this office, I haven't heard any authority that has said we're making poor decisions. Us, well, your wife.
Yeah, she told me
She's your ultimate authority, but not mine. So, but I haven't heard anybody in a court say that we're making poor decisions. And
offhand, I was kind of told that I shouldn't be on that board because I'm too kind-hearted.
Well, and so there's a balance too, because
Well, I got back. I fought back because I personally feel that when you enforce the law to the letter, you degrade the law in people's minds, and they start beginning to figure out how to get around
it.
And one example was that generator, because You do that too many times to people, they won't come for permits, they'll just put them in.
You're absolutely
They'll
right.
just disobey the law, so, you can have this hard-nosed thing about the law, but you can also, doing that, destroy the law and turn people against the law and against the town. People can like the town or they can hate the town. And if the town enforces all the laws to the letter, you're gonna have people start hating the town because we got too many laws in this country, in this culture.
Well, I'm not gonna get into like whether or not we have too many laws. I mean, there does seem to be a law just about everything. But the thing is, like, even, I'll tell you a really quick little story, years ago, and my husband was killed, and there was a 2.5 year mandatory sentence that if you were involved in that kind of thing, and there was a death mandatory sentence. And the judge told me, I asked if I could speak to him about it, and the judge told me there was really nothing to speak about. 2.5 years mandatory. But my lawyer did speak to the judge and said, really, could you just hear her out, because she's a widow, she wants to talk to you. He did hear me out, and the man did not go to jail for 2.5 years. He went and did community service at the VA for 2.5 years, which I felt much more comfortable with. He could still work. He supported his family. They didn't lose their home. They didn't lose their income. And I felt it was much fairer. Now, was that the law? No, the law said he had to go to jail for 2.5 years. But I just didn't feel comfortable with taking somebody else's husband
that's
or
a good-
father
That's like the.
because of my own loss.
Three strikes and you're out, it's not working.
It's not working because
so-
there's people that have 10 strikes and they're still out,
But there's some that have 1 or 2 or 3 minor ones and they're in jail as though they were hardened criminals, so.
Yeah, it all depends on the judge.
Yeah, the law, you gotta have people interpreting it and the people have gotta have common sense.
Right, but the good thing about a judge is, he's basically doing, in a way, what we're doing, it's an interpretation of the law.
Right.
And the law is just when he makes that determination, and like you're saying, the case that you had, that's what he did. And that was by the law,
Yeah,
because he made that
because
decision.
he made
He's
the
a judge.
decision. Right.
Exactly.
So
I think that's the
he
same thing we're
didn't-
doing here.
He didn't rewrite the law.
No.
He just interpreted it with a little bit of mercy and sensibility.
Grace.
And I think that grace. And that's my issue, is that I really want board members for the appeals board to have a voice with the selectmen and get us enough money for some legitimate training in why we have to only say no.
Well,
Because,
That's a philosophical thing, you won't
Yeah.
get that from a lawyer. Lawyers are not philosophers.
no, they continually say it's a board decision.
Yeah.
right. And that's where I think it's more of, he wants it as your view of mind when you go into it, that most likely it's not going to happen. But if we find that in the rules that they have to meet those things, if we find how they do fit into it, then there can be a variance. But I think he just wants you to go into it with the ahead of time that chances are it's probably going to be a no.
Right.
That doesn't make the determination, the board makes the determination.
And it's some of it too is, the people that, like the first case I witnessed and was involved in, the young couple, they did a terrible job presenting the thing, okay? They should have gotten an attorney because that was a big thing, big issue with a lot of money involved. And of course, we voted it down, but they did a poor job of doing it. And the guy with the generator could have done a better job too, because I kind of helped him. I basically threw in a health thing there,
Right.
He's.
Yeah, and really we shouldn't be helping them. The presentation of evidence is always
their
the
burden.
the applicant's burden. And I did that once too, because of things that I heard in another meeting which I happened to be sitting in, and there was another case that had come before us prior to you being here, but, and I kept saying, well, I heard you say in selectmen's meeting, I heard you say in selectmen's meeting, but that's not my job, you know? And so really, probably we should try to stay away from doing that, because if they're not presenting the proof, if they're not presenting the testimony and we're presenting that for them, I do think that's a little bit of a stretch. I don't think that we should try to do
This would
that.
be something I think I would like to ask attorney. I went into North Berwick and my excavator put the foundation in too close to the setback, over the setback.
Whoops.
And so I went in there and just so happened that the town manager was in with the building inspector. And I told him what went on, and you know, the very nice guys, and the town manager said, I'm telling you right now, you will not get a variance. I'm glad he told me that, because I might have gone and pursued it and wasted a lot of time. He just told me right up front, he says, you're not gonna get it. And maybe he didn't have the authority, but he did say that to me, and I didn't try to get it, I just told my excavator to eat it, pull it out, pull the foundation out, and he pulled
You
it out and
didn't
put it
fix
back
it.
in.
Yeah.
But it saved a whole lot of time and aggravation, because, and I wasn't the only one that built it across the street, did the same thing. So
Oh, really?
they told him the same thing, you're not getting the variance, though he was trying, you know, work it out, and so, I mean, that's kind of what I was hitting at once when I said, maybe the code enforcement could impress on people that it's very, very difficult to get one. And that they should be very careful about writing the appeal. And maybe have an attorney do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, can Steve, can you guys direct Steve to do that,
He tells me all the time that he stays in his job. He doesn't, he tries not to make determinations. I've asked him to hand out,
But that's not a
you know,
determination,
but
that's
hand out information to people, but he says it's right here. And he's right, I mean, he doesn't have that kind of time all day long, he is busy.
Right, but if he's
Yeah.
on site, and this is just, the only example I have is the one with the generator that we were just at. He was physically there, and he knew the individual was already over the amount at 25.
Right,
What we did is gonna bring him down to like 22, still over, but we're lessening it.
right.
Why couldn't he have looked at it and said, look, if you cut this out,
So apparently
And
he
then
cannot, and I'm
move
not
this
sticking
section
up for him.
so that you're within.
I'm just trying to say to you that his job, and a lot of people don't understand, and I try to understand, it's frustrating for me, but his job is to say
No,
25 feet, and if you're within that, go see the appeals board. That's his
Right.
job. He cannot give them a variant, although with this new land use thing, I understand that they're trying to give him permission to do simple ADA, you know, ramps and stuff, which is fine with me,
yeah,
because
I
I don't
think
think they should have to spend all that money. to-
yeah, if
I
there's
thought he
someone who's
already had that
disabled,
ability.
I would think
Yeah.
that would make the most sense, it's the most,
Yeah, I think so too,
if it's
but,
within reason.
yeah, I mean, if it's, you know,
Not a roller coaster.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's good all day.
We come back to the fact, whether it's code enforcement, selectmen, or anybody, they're town officials, they work for the public.
Right,
They should go beyond the law. They should go beyond the law, and they
I
should.
just don't think
they-
code enforcement can.
I
Yeah, I really don't think he can, and, or, you know, I really don't think he can. And listen, do
not
I
by-
approve of everything he
Yeah,
does?
but not,
No, I have
I'm not
issues
talking
too, but,
about,
you know.
I'm not talking about telling someone what the law is or interpretation of the law. I'm talking about just being nice.
Yeah,
And if you know something for a fact, just tell him. He knows for a fact, because it's right here, okay, in the town and state ordinances, that it's very, very difficult to get
right,
an appeals. I understand that, because I've been building houses and working with bureaucrats forever. but average people there don't
don't know.
understand. Those kids didn't have a clue when they came in here what they were stepping into, not a
No,
clue.
they
What were
did,
they looking for?
They were looking for a variance for a major problem in a
Yeah,
subdivision,
building.
in a building. But what I'm saying is, they can't be telling people what the law says or interpreting the law, but they can be nice.
well, and my thing is that, you know,
gloves.
and I go
What's
in,
that?
I go into other
Kid
towns too,
gloves,
quite a
you know,
bit,
Try to
and
just
they have
be a little more
handouts.
polite.
They can be helpful.
I know when we were here and he was here, he was not
Helpful.
happy to interact with me. I don't exactly know why. I've never met him before, and until you said his name, I didn't remember his name was Steve until you just said it. And but he seemed very mad. I don't understand why he's.
You know,
Listen to this, Paul. Listen to it.
So the issue, and the issue that I've talked to the board to address is if we ask him a question, telling us that our question is not relevant is not his job. That's our job. If we ask a question, it's his job to answer it or to say he doesn't know or whatever. It's not his
Or
job
if he
to
doesn't wanna be here,
determine
then he
whether or
doesn't.
not it's relevant, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, but you
Just
just
no
can't.
reason to be upset about it.
Right,
I think he feels we're questioning his job, and that's not the point.
No.
We're trying to understand the decision that was made. That's all.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I like to make that point as well, is, you know, like, you don't have
And
to
there's
draw
no-
it out for me.
there's
I'm not a
nothing wrong.
I'm not a, you know,
There's nothing wrong with a selectman or town manager or building inspector telling people that it's very difficult to get an appeals and you should be prepared. There is
I
nothing
agree
wrong
with
with
that.
that. That's just,
I agree
to
with
me, that's common decency. You're just forewarning people of a reality. It's not, maybe it's gonna be hard. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And then it's our job to make it hard.
Well, and then, you know, I tell Jen too, when I always get the question, Jen will tell you, almost every applicant, so what do we need to bring? You know?
See, that's where I think, and I know maybe that's not our job. There's so many times you can say something's not our job, but maybe we can assist by coming up like with a standard operating procedure on how you
Yeah, so
file
we have,
for an appeal.
we actually
We have,
have a checklist now, which we didn't when I
Okay,
first
that's
came
cool.
here.
That's good.
But I created it with Jenny, and now Jen has kind of even perfected it
And they give it
even
out
more.
when they give it, they get an application, they give that to the people?
Not yet. You don't give that to them, right? So I think personally that it should be right there on that application. I've asked,
Common decency would dictate that you do that.
but it goes into their folder, and then when I come in to check if everything's there, it's right there, and I check it off, and then I tell Jen what they need. But I think too that it should be right on the application. But more so, even my standard answer to that is anything you can think of that has to do with your appeal. If it's a receipt for lumber that you bought because you had to repair a hole in the floor, which now you need to repair again, bring me that receipt. Because if I ask for it and you don't have it,
Right.
And, you
You know.
know, I think in cases where you're talking like that house, it would be fair to tell people maybe you should get an attorney.
yeah,
You know,
because
people don't
I don't think that they would have even come in here if they knew how heavily we were gonna rely on a survey.
Yeah.
A survey of that property that they didn't have. I mean, they spent a lot of money to come in here and talk to us, and if they didn't have the money for the survey, they probably shouldn't have
If
bothered.
they would've went to any attorney, the attorney would have said, you don't want this piece of land,
Yeah,
and they wouldn't even been here.
So,
I mean,
so
so-
they not even have an inspector that actually checked it? Well, that's where they went wrong from the beginning then.
oh,
And your realtor should really cover that for you.
an application.
No, they should.
oh,
This is
But you know
The builder should have did it.
oh, so this is this is what people get when they're applying to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
Which is us, I guess, even though we have no zoning, but,
And what does your sheet look like, the one that you made out?
Jen, I'm sorry, she's got one. I don't even have one, because I don't,
I mean, in a way, I'm kind of being kind of lazy, because if the fewer people we see, the better I feel about it.
no, because I don't like to say no to them either, but.
Yeah, well, I just,
Yeah.
I got a life, and so I don't wanna encourage people necessarily come here, but it can be very detrimental to them financially if they come unprepared. And they should be told that, I think they should.
Yeah, I agree, they should come prepared, absolutely 100%, and you can't come in and say, well, my neighbor doesn't care. No, I need your neighbor to tell me that he doesn't care, you know?
Exactly.
I mean,
why-
sometimes just by the neighbor not being here, if they got,
Maybe a
You know.
suggestion can be added that make sure you have a record of how you contacted your neighbors and whether they were yay or nay on
thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
what you're looking
You're
for as an appeal.
So this goes into their, file, when they bring this in, that starts the ball rolling, they bring this in.
Down
And then,
forward.
but there is nothing here that tells them what I'm gonna be looking for, nothing. Okay, nothing. And then, when they bring that into Jen calls me to come down and approve it for a public hearing. And I come down and I look at this, and I will tell you, 9/10 of them don't bring a deed, they don't bring any, like if they had a permit for a deck 2 years ago and they're on the shoreline, we have to know that they have a permit for the deck and that didn't take up their expansion or whatever, or all that stuff, you know.
Zoning.
Yeah, we have to know that stuff, so you see that this is all a checklist of things that I look for to make sure that they have, but I mean, some of this shouldn't be on here, like, some of this is obviously geared toward helping the office staff, like, schedule the hearing per the Lebanon ordinance 30 days, within 30 days, and within 5 days of the site visit, which we usually do the same day, but sometimes not. Or about putting it in a newspaper, or if you have questions, who to call. So some of this stuff doesn't obviously have to be on an applicant checklist, but there is no checklist. There's nothing to even begin to prepare them. And then when they fill this out, they think they're filling out they have 4 lines.
Yeah, that's what I mean, it makes it look easy,
Yeah, they have 4 lines, so if you write big, you get a sentence,
yeah.
and then that's what we get, I mean,
But if you were a critical reader and thinker, if you looked at this page,
Right.
you would say, this is a trap.
yeah. I better go read that.
But people are critical thinkers, so, they think, well, this is nothing, I'll just fill it out, we'll go in there and buzz through this thing, and like I said, they don't understand how difficult it is to get one.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, if you can fit your answers onto this page, you're probably in trouble. It should probably be, they should probably write something and add it to the back of this. But there's, I don't even think that there's nothing on here that even tells them that you can add additional information by writing something in a town. There's nothing even here that tells them that, it just says, basically the 4 hardships, and I mean, the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return. There's nothing there that even tells them what that is. I mean, granted, if you know that the appeals board's gonna be a struggle, you might go and read up on it and
Right.
figure out how to answer that. But if you think you're just coming in here to talk to people and,
That's not gonna help.
no, and this isn't gonna help us either.
By all rights, anybody that comes in here with any significant request should have an attorney, because these things are all interpreted, and the way you structure your answer will determine how people respond to it. That's a
Sure.
given, that's a given. And
very
attorneys are sophists, so they know how to do that. They know how
The only
to-
thing that I do
Yes, you-
caution you on that about is that we're a town board. We're basic, I always think, I've been told to think of myself as like a local kind of a judge. I don't, I always think of myself as part of a jury of 6 of their peers, because we all live here in town, and we all know the area, we all know its restrictions, we all know what the real problems are as far as water pollution or stuff like that, and we.
It's more than
you
that,
know.
we're all neighbors, really.
Right, and so I always think, rather than, oh, I'm a judge, no, I'm part of a jury, a board of your peers that is gonna hear this and try to help make a determination on this, you know, so,
And of course, number one is totally ambiguous. I mean, it's not an objective question. It's open to interpretations. I mean,
so I had a discussion with somebody after that generator one that said to me, like, you don't even know, like, once you have a generator there, like, not how much it costs you to purchase it at the showroom, but once you have a generator there and then you don't have a generator there, like, it really doesn't affect the selling price.
Well, that's
Well,
not necessarily true.
Right, and how would I know that? Because that was not given to me as part of
Right.
the code enforcement's case.
But that's where I kind
You
of
know?
disagree, because, I tried to explain it to Mike O'Brien about if you bought a car and it had AC and now the AC is broken, you're not gonna get what you would have gotten for value if the car was
And
perfectly functioning.
interestingly enough, if you go to get an inspection sticker on your car,
It's probably gonna fail.
it's going to fail because
Correct.
the air conditioner was there and now it is not, and they fail you on it.
but the
So-
question is, it doesn't say that you have to get your money back. It says a
Reasonable return.
So in real estate, a reasonable return, you can lose $10,000 and still be called a reasonable return.
Right,
That's
but
the problem.
in life,
Yeah, and of course,
But you're not gonna wanna buy a house where this happened to and lose $10,000 either, though. When it should be a simple thing as getting it and replacing it. It wasn't an addition, it was a
Yeah.
replacement.
I'd be honest, if I was going before an appeals board like in Wells or something, I would have my attorney do it.
Yeah,
I would not touch it.
So-
These
But-
questions, I wouldn't touch these questions myself.
I wouldn't either, I'd have some, and I'm a good writer, but
Yeah.
I would have some.
Yeah, I can BS people.
Well,
It's-
and that's why I have, my dad always told me, if you're not smart about every single thing. So
Right.
surround yourself with people who are smarter than you on the things that you're bad at. So I've always remembered that.
Because all this is legal lawyer talk, and they can do a better job than the average citizen, and so if it was up to me, I would have. Now, on the generator thing, I don't know if there was enough money involved to have an attorney come in on the thing,
no.
but.
I mean, maybe if we had denied it, he would have had to have gone to court, and then, you really should have.
But did you see, have you read any of the judgments that the judges made? I maybe read some online.
Oh, yeah.
One judge says okay, the other judge overrules it.
Overturns
They disagree back
it.
and forth
It's
about
horrible,
things.
horrible.
And some of it was, one of them was this very thing, about a reasonable return.
Yeah.
Because one judge was so hard-nosed.
That's the one I sent you, right, in the
Yeah,
email?
He was so hard-nosed, he was basically saying, hey, if you can put a picnic table there and have a family reunion, you're getting a reasonable return on the land.
Yeah.
So, and then the other guy came in and basically said, well, no, that's crazy, this thing is about money, not,
Right.
and I can't remember which one won out in the end, but that's what I'm saying, they're no different, they're just people. And they're just like
Right.
us, and you're gonna find some that are more gracious, some are legalistic, and
I mean, I think, that was the two Mikes, that was their first meeting. I think they did a fine job. I mean, Mike obviously based in real estate. His discussions were obviously based from a real estate standpoint, and Mike Parker obviously was based in interpretation. I think we have a pretty well-rounded board right now, and I think when Don comes back, I think that
they're
will add to
rational
it.
and objective to a reasonable point. You cannot be totally objective about anything as a human being. So, I mean, if the state or the town is asking us to be totally objective, they're asking for something that only God can do. I mean, so because human beings are not totally objective.
On my impression with the individual that generated, it wasn't just that, he was very well presented. He followed through with all his stuff, and he was pleasant through the whole deal and
Yeah, he
trying to
didn't get
make
negative.
it work. Exactly. And when you have somebody that's willing to work with you versus people who are, no,
Right.
you know.
Right,
So,
and I mean,
I
when we
just
made
think
the
he-
suggestion, he was willing to go along with
Exactly.
that. Yeah, so,
And
you
there's
know,
not gonna be, in my opinion, there's not a lot of people who are who will
Chill.
be as well put together, and
chill.
and maintain his composure. I mean, seem like an excellent person.
Yeah, and that, you know, I mean, again, I mean, if, for example, if one of my friends came in here and was presenting a case, I would not hear it. It's not a
Right, this
conflict
is
of
right.
interest, except for that I know myself, and I don't want even
Right.
to appear conflict of interest. And I think we have enough board members that I wouldn't have to. So I would excuse myself from that, because it shouldn't be about whether they're a good person. It shouldn't be about whether the project is, oh, that's a good project.
Right.
It's, you know, it should follow the basic guidelines. And I mean, if there's no way to help him, then we just should say no and let the courts figure out if there's a way to help him. You know, I mean, that's just,
I talked to
You
my
know.
son about that, and like I said, he's been on a board of appeals in Wells, and they're tough. They don't issue very many appeals. I asked him about the generator issue, and he said, they wouldn't even, they would have let that go too.
yeah.
I mean, because it's such a small item, you know, it's not a huge.
I mean,
item.
I think on the big things where there were real legal issues, I think that we've stood our ground and said no. I mean, I just think we have, and.
Yeah, that was tough too. The girl was crying and
I know, it was
carrying
very,
on. And,
I mean, I had my very first one was almost exactly like that same kind of ending with people crying and,
see,
know,
but
being
that's
upset with
where
me and-
I think
I mean, that
that,
happens
that could have been
sometimes.
cut off. Those people should have been kind of like, you can't tell somebody to get an attorney, but you can strongly recommend, because there was so many problems there.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have come to us. We shouldn't have had to tell them that.
Well, we were their next actual step, I mean, after us, and, you know, I mean, a lot of times too, and I've heard if they go to a judge, the judge is gonna say to them, did you go to your local appeals board, did you try to work it out at
But
the local level,
an
you know?
attorney and a judge would have just said, no, you don't
Yeah.
want that land. That's
Right.
that's not a good.
Right,
thing."
if they had sought an attorney, yeah, oh yeah.
The guy didn't even do a
time.
title search on it.
Yeah.
I mean, just crazy, crazy, you know, and
Yeah.
so, but I don't think, you know, you can get training up to your eyeballs, okay, but it's always gonna come back, you're never gonna solve these problems until you can get people to, well, until we and the people that we're talking to can understand this
Right.
jargon here, because there
So
are.
do you guys see that, and I don't have it with me, but, there's a thing that, is put out by a law firm here in Lebanon, and that's what I read from each meeting when I go and I read for each one of the 4 criteria, and I read
I think
that.
we included it in our first package.
Right, yeah. So when I use that, it's because that particular one is the easiest for me. But really, I think that people who are considering coming to the appeals board, I mean, rather than paying whatever it is, $150, and I think they're going up on it, because now they also have to pay for publication in the paper, or they have to pay whatever is over and above the publication, cause I think, wasn't it like how much was it, Jen?
It
Does,
was like 180 something.
so our fee, thank you, our fee is $150. See, that's not even enough to cover the publication in the paper that we're required by law to do, so anybody coming in now has to pay that, at least that, whatever it is, so the price is going up, there's no two ways about it. And so these people are gonna pay, but this this right here is all they're getting for that money. And, personally, I think we ought to add 3 or 4 more pieces of paper, and we ought to give them the checklist. And we ought to give them some kind of determination about even that lawyer one, which I use, I think is excellent. But we ought to give them some kind of determination on what we're looking for, like, reasonable rate of return. Nobody and their brother knows what that means, okay? I'm just
Of
saying.
course, you have to get an attorney to interpret that, and then you have to get the
Well, and
town to
that one
okay
comes from
the-
the state.
Yeah,
That's the one that the state kinda
Interprets?
hands out.
They-
Well, it's a legal interpretation by a lawyer, but it's the one that, like, the state kind of points you to if
how
you
deep
have
is
questions.
it? I can't remember.
It's very basic,
Yeah, let's see.
but it's better than just saying
Well, the other question.
the landed question, because you know what, honestly, like, I see some of these things when I'm online and I'm looking at it, landed question cannot yield a reasonable rate of return. Well, we have a kid now, he can't fit a swing set. You know, like, I mean, some of the times people answer that, like, and you go like, what are they talking about, you know? And it's not their fault, it's because they have absolutely no instruction, or even if, alright, even better, if we don't wanna print all of that and hand it out, we could just add a line right onto our own application that says, please see the description by the state of Maine, and in this, you know, you can find it online at this website, you know, and let them go and read it, but at least tell them that there is actually a legal like a legal kind of wording, like, this isn't just something that we're asking you because we didn't feel like baking brownies today. This is something that we have to ask you.
Well, if you make that into an electronic form and then put it on the town's website, you could
Yeah.
actually put the link right into it, that would take them to that area.
Right, or, you know, I mean,
Very
some
simple.
people don't use computers, believe it or not, still in this day and age, but even if you said to them, you know, like, it's in this document, and if you can access online, here's the link to it, and you put it right on the page, so they know where to go and look for it, like, the need for a variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not the general conditions of the neighborhood. There's actually a way that they tell us, even right here in this manual for land use appeals board, there's a way they tell us to read that and to read the application and see if it's unique to,
Right.
there's a way that they tell us to do that. So if they're telling us how to do that, why aren't we
Alright,
providing that information? You know, like, why aren't we, the same, I mean, you guys weren't here, we heard one, she was told to measure from the road, 50 feet from the road. What, measured from the road, 50 feet, she was like 61 feet from the road. I told her to measure from the road right away, you know, and I mean, she was a lay person. She didn't know, she did what she was told, but those kind of things, like if somebody's coming in and saying, I'm gonna do this myself, there should be certain things that are available to people, telling them how to measure from your, you know, put a string line between your two boundaries and measure from that, that's acceptable, or
If you're doing measurements, a lot of times your best bet is to get a surveyor.
get a surveyor, I know,
It's
but
like 250
people don't
grand a
always.
buck.
I'm a professional, and 9 times out of 10, more than that, most of the time, all the time, I get a surveyor and I get an attorney.
You just put in a foundation over the setback, brother, so don't tell.
I didn't.
Oh, with your excavator?
I had it right,
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying,
and then the.
I mean, it happens,
Yeah.
and especially if you're, oh my gosh, like, we just got this piece of land and we're gonna build, and,
Oh,
you
the
know,
first thing that I
You
would
know.
have to say, and I'm not that experienced with land, but I'm gonna get a surveyor and I'm gonna make sure it is the right piece of land, and how it fits.
Oh yeah, I had a surveyor and all that stuff before I even bought my property. And he said,
Right.
that was part of my deal with them. What do you mean it's not surveyed? Like, you pay for the surveyor, and then I made them pay for the septic inspection, and then I found out
Exactly.
there was not even a permit for my septic, so I had to come in at the time and have the code enforcement guy come out, and he had to dig up my whole septic system and make sure that, I mean, it was all fine, and he approved it, gave me my permit, but there was no permit, so I had to have, and I made them pay for it. I wasn't gonna pay for it.
Is there a way that, can you speak? If we invite you,
Right, I'm seeing.
we're inviting you, okay, to
Okay.
speak. Is there any rule against the town warning people about how hard it is to get an appeals, approval? Is there something wrong with that, or is there something, you know?
Or is that something we're not supposed to
You
do?
gotta also realize what your track record is. If you tell them it's hard to get, but if the track record is 9 out of 10 pass, that's gonna speak louder than what you're
Yeah,
saying.
but I mean, under a normal situation where there's a record of it not passing,
I mean, as a chairman, I'm 3-3 right now, so just saying, I'm about even.
you're 3 and 3?
3-3, 3 pass, 3 fail, yeah.
Which is the difference from what it used to be.
It's a
What
big
was it?
difference.
What did it used to be?
They used to pass them
It
all.
used to be all
Oh,
pass.
okay.
Oh, I know your brother. You know,
You didn't.
I do.
I was on it for a while, way back, and we passed everything, and fortunately, I didn't stay there very long, cause then I went to the budget committee and then to the planning board, but so they I was kinda jumping around, but if I recall correctly, we did pass most of them. And, but there was no training, no one ever told us not to do.
And
do that.
that's the thing that bothers me, is that we have no training. And even if we all wanted to go as a group and like be a big group and go up to that state training so that somebody
Oh,
would
yeah.
pay us some interest,
course,
we
it was a
don't
different-
even have enough for that, for all of us to
It
go
was
to
a
that.
different mood in town too,
Yeah.
than maybe now. You have to consider that too, you know, like, even the planning board was more lax in its doings. But, you know, I used to talk to people against the law, probably after the planning board meetings, I would tell them, you better have a spell checker. Because we got a couple board members that will check the spelling and it will set you back 30 days. And so we had some nasty people. And in fact, I was asked to be on the board by the selectmen. And I asked them why, and they said, because we need some nice people on it. So, I mean, it can go
Yeah,
from different
Because
extremes.
sometimes it's too extreme.
Yeah, and that's where,
And that's why I said I was grateful for Mike O'Brien last week, like, he's brand new, and yet he took the time, it was obvious. He took the time
Yeah.
to know those criteria and to try to fit within them, you know, but like you said, is sometimes it's just that little tiny little bit isn't really gonna hurt anybody to grant the variance, you know, so, so hard line, yeah, I believe that there's a lot of things that we do need to be hard lining. Shoreline zoning is one of them, you know, I'm
if the
really.
state's got a problem, if the neighbor's got a problem, you know, those, that makes it easier for you to say no.
Yeah,
When-
and I mean, I really think like if somebody's trying to build a big huge house on a little tiny lot, I really think that they need to go to a judge, you know, that- I don't think that the appeals board is the right
What do
place
you,
for them. you
what
know?
size are you talking about lot for
Well, you know,
too
like
small?
the little 50 by 100 foot lots on our waterfront, and they're
Oh, okay.
trying to build like a, you know, within 3 feet of the lot line on
Right.
either side and 3 stories up.
I'm so used to
You know,
Upper Guinea where the majority are 2 acres.
right, exactly.
And
Well, and you know, they've done a
pretty
good
much
job pulling that.
Any decent sized house on 2 acres.
I mean, they have done a
would
good job pulling that back into conformity. I mean, we have a lot less. I mean, I know there are still a ton of non-conforming lots, don't get me wrong, but I think we have a lot less because I think they've done
Yeah,
a good
it's almost
job
on
of
that.
that.
Right, you know, like where he was, the guy with the gen and how close they are.
Yeah. it's
I would
crazy.
never live there because personally, that's just not enough space between people for me.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I have 2 great neighbors I don't know if you know, Eddie Pierce,
No,
does a lot of plowing and stuff. And then I have, on the other side, Andrew Joy and his family.
I don't know anybody.
He works.
Nobody wants to talk to me, even though I'm accused of talking to anybody, but
She's a Flatlander, she doesn't know.
I don't know anybody. I've been here 20 years, I don't think I've talked to a handful of people,
But
but.
they are.
I talk to them all online, so I can't even tell you who they are,
When
but,
my power goes out, when our power goes out, they always offer, like, if you need to put stuff in the fridge,
Oh,
just
yeah,
good
that's
neighbors.
yeah. Yeah, that makes life nice. But no, I traveled, yesterday, we went up to Cape Elizabeth, and we were both looking and we were saying like, if there was ever a house fire,
These
you
people,
know, like
yeah,
in one house, that
It's the
whole
whole
entire
neighborhood.
place is
Oh.
going, because they're like, they're within
do
inches,
that.
you can't even walk in between the houses, you know,
my,
like.
my wife's from Salem, Mass.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the street she used to live on, there are houses that are just like you're saying, and
Craziness, yeah, we don't need
can't do that.
But yeah, so anyway, here's the thing. Our next meeting set for March 11th. If that variance application comes in, it's an ADA variance, so it should be fairly easily.
Ramp.
Yeah, so it should be fairly easy to review and make a decision on and stuff. So afterwards, that's why I kind of wanted you to have these bylaws.
Right.
So afterwards, I really want to talk about that, because bylaws don't go to the voter, it's just the way that the board governs itself. So, I really want you guys, these are York's, and, I really wanted you to kind of take a look at it, because, you know, this is my second year as chairman, and I'm just starting to get a good feel, you know, for how this all flows, because I did not get this.
It does start a lot like what we have.
Yeah, and so here's what I'm saying to you, I mean, not that I'm planning on it, but, you know, I mean, anybody can go at any minute, and if there's no fundamentals, if there's no basics, like, you know, I mean, I think it should start right out, you salute the flag at the beginning, because I'm just a stickler for that, you know, and I think it's important, I think it reminds people what we're doing, you know, we're not, you know,
One thing I can do
we're
is,
not having a beer at the Moose Club, you know?
my attorney's a good friend of mine, we had lunch off, and I can kinda twist him, he's a real estate attorney.
To help with these,
I can see what I can get out of him if he has any examples of stuff that he's done, he'd give them to me.
yeah, because these don't have to go in front of the voter, but the other thing, that John gave you, and you probably already have them, but this is like, you can mark on this, okay? But, I just want you to look through it and see, because if there's a change that we need to propose, like there are some things on here that are completely stupid as far as Lebanon is concerned. They just don't fit, they will never fit, and I don't even know why they were even included. But just look it through, mark it up, we'll talk about it on March 11th, and if there's any kind of changes that we need to have a discussion about, we have until April 11th
Okay.
to get that on the ballot. And prior to us doing that, we'll probably have to talk to the selectmen, well, I mean, I know we'll have to, but we'll have to talk to them about whether or not it's already changed in their land use ordinance, which, I don't know, it's 45 pages that I
Isn't there
can't
supposed to be
decipher.
a workshop on that,
It will be.
on land use?
At the public hearing, or this back to the workshops that we were having?
Next week or two, we should get.
Oh, really? Next week or two, else will be ready.
Yeah, well, just as soon as the board agrees to it, the three of us haven't agreed to it yet. As soon as the three of us work that out, then we'll go to the workshop, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it is, because it definitely needs to be done. I mean, I really don't have a whole lot of problem with what I'm hearing anyway. The only thing, there's some things that I don't understand, like I was telling you prior about, you can't go to the appeals board if it's this, but you can go if it's that, and if it's only one person's decision, not if it's a board's decision. And I didn't understand all of that, because that does, from what I could hear, that does change. I was told basically the appeals board the appeals board process will be the same, but then when I was hearing what was being discussed, I don't think it is, so,
You gotta go
you know.
back to the original document, you gotta look at the subdivision guide, you gotta look at shoreline zone, because each one addresses it separately.
Yeah, well, we haven't got to see it yet, so when I see it,
Well, no, I mean,
you know, I can,
the current documents are already out there, subdivision guide's already out there, shoreline zoning's already out there, site review's already out there, so
yeah.
those,
What
We're
does
not
site review
changing those.
provide for appeals, anything?
site review is the same thing as Superior Court.
Superior Court, so, and I don't understand why, I mean, it's just a site
That's
review,
the way it was
you know?
designed and
I know.
ordered by the town, so.
I know, and it
Doesn't
was
say it
rushed
can be
through,
changed.
it
I'm
was
not saying
rushed
that.
through, and it was necessary, but it was rushed through and nobody had really had the chance to argue about it prior,
So
so.
it's kind of based on, off the subdivision.
I like the
so.
word.
Yeah, and it all just comes one piece at a
It's
time.
never argument, it's just debate.
No,
It should be.
only if they like you. If they don't like you, you're attacking or arguing, so, but, so, that, March 11th, and then if that application does actually come in, we'll
probably
hear
have
that
site
too, we'll do
visit.
that first. We'll do 4 o'clock site visit, 6 o'clock public
Okay.
hearing, and then we'll finish up with this. With, you know, because as long as we've all marked up our copies, it should be a fairly easy
Yeah.
discussion, and we can ask, Paul to come back and see if any of our discussion is contrary to that, all that stuff being put into it. The appeals board ordinance will now be incorporated into that land use ordinance, or will it still be separate?
Part of it will still be separate, up to, from section 3 on is in the land use ordinance.
From section, including section 3, the duties and
Yes,
powers,
including 3 and on to the end, it's all.
is all part of the land use ordinance, so. I mean, you might as well look at it here, because if it's gonna be discussed as part of that land use ordinance anyway, you know, you can have some kind of an idea of what you're thinking on it as part of the appeals board. So it's, I mean, from what I was hearing, there's not a whole lot of problems with that, for me, personally, with that land use ordinance, they've done a really good job on it, you know, but other people may feel differently.
Well, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, I've only watched it on video, and again, it's like, yeah, go to page 8, and this has changed to this, so you don't actually
Yeah.
see the whole page, you just
I
hear,
need to read something,
you know,
I can't
yeah, me
just decipher, I guess.
they don't have it ready yet, I don't think, but,
I gotta hear it.
uh,
Okay.
just not ready yet, that's all.
Can I just bring up a
Yeah.
couple of things that you addressed here tonight, just so that I know I at least shared them with you?
Yes, cause then I knew you were listening.
Yeah, well, I'm a little concerned about the March 11th meeting that you're gonna have, in that when you open it up, the practice has been to the planning board, and it leaves no question on the direction that you're going, but when you first open your meeting up, the first thing you do is you take attendance. And if you want to add somebody into your group for that night to make the decision, that's when it's done, before you start the hearing,
Alright.
and not during the hearing do you make that decision.
So like if we wanted to motion that Michael be included as a member, as a voting member, it's done at the very beginning?
Very beginning, before you
Okay,
start
that's
the
good to
actual
know.
hearing of the case. And
Okay,
that way, there's no question on anybody wondering whether or not you put him in here for a particular reason, or didn't put him in there at the right time. It's done at the beginning and you just go. And if
Okay.
you have a quorum and you still wanna use an alternate, cause you have 5 as your board, right?
right,
But if you have 3 and you still wanna have the alternate in there, you can do that.
That's a good idea.
right.
So you can start a
Yeah,
quorum.
so just do it right at the very beginning when
Right
we
at the very
open them.
beginning, and that way he can participate throughout the whole,
Okay,
your decision.
Okay.
Makes more sense.
yeah, it does.
The board training,
Yeah.
have you thought about including yourselves, the planning board, and codes?
So, the reason why I originally did not and I haven't thought about it again since then, is that when planning board had DEP come in and do that training, we were told, okay, I did wind up coming, you remember, but we were told at the time that it was too many, it was overwhelming, that it was too many, and they were specifically trying to address planning board questions, because it was a planning board training. I mean, I'm sure that you'll remember my emails to you going, what the heck, because I really wanted to be included in that, so, I mean, certainly if planning board, is open to that, I would be open to that, as long as it's, understood that everybody has a voice, it's not a planning board training that we're being allowed to come and ask one or two questions, that's not good for me.
Well, my suggestion would be is that you develop an agenda between the two of you. This is the topics we're gonna hit, these are the primary questions that we want to address, and then have a time afterwards for a general, but more like they do with MMA, they have certain things that they're gonna touch on.
Right.
Be both chairs get together and say, okay, this is the areas that we need to get clarified.
Yeah, I'm good with Sarah, so, I mean, I could actually
Then we
do
bring it
that.
down and get our money's worth out, and you can spread out your costs a little bit better. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, that would work. I mean, I think that that's a great idea, like I said, but, before when that tried to happen, it was not good, because, I mean, you remember the emails anyway, so
That's why-
that's all I'll say.
Having a pre-agenda already decide, it'll help the person prepare that's coming down. They know what they need to
Right,
be.
what the topics are.
Be what
Yeah,
they
good idea.
present. Detailed instructions on how to fill out the application. The best people to be able to tell us how to do that. It's right there. You know what you need. I would suggest
I know exactly what I would put on there, but, I,
draft something up and let us look at it. I don't have a problem with it, I think your idea is good. Again, the planning board, we kinda had to do that too, so,
yeah,
I mean, you know what you wanna see. And you're right, the person coming in doesn't know.
they don't know. That, the application is so just, oh yeah, I mean, and there's like this much space. I mean, I would tell them, instead of even putting a line there, I would tell them, fill out at least a half a page on each one, typewritten, double spaced,
I could actually see somebody creating a profession that writes those for people through South Southern Maine.
Really?
If you had the time, to look at a person's case and sit down and write it, it would make it easier on the people, easier on the board, somebody that was a professional, I hate to say it, a BSer.
So a lawyer.
You get $250 an hour to do that.
Right up to the lawyer you went. Yeah,
But that'd just be my suggestion. You know best what you're looking for.
okay,
I think that's a good point. We should just go ahead and do it and just let the selectmen look at it. And this, if they say, no, you can't do that, well, okay, we'll take it
I
out.
don't think you're gonna see you say no to anything, it's gonna make your job easier.
You could turn each one of those questions into a complete sheet that's lined for page,
I
for
know.
page, for page, so.
yeah, so
At
we
least
have
then
to.
they have an idea that it needs to be a complete.
I will check with my
Right.
attorney to see if, he's got 1,000 books on his shelf, maybe he's got a book that helps with that stuff, and he'll
They're
get.
just for looks.
They keep it a secret, otherwise,
Yeah.
their secretaries do most of their legal work
I
out of the
know.
books. They take down the books and copy.
Paralegals.
Yeah, so if he's got it, I can get it out of him,
Yeah.
and see what.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, we can't expect people to give us a competent answer if we don't ask a competent question. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
my personal feeling is the average person. Now, if a guy's got a
Yeah.
PhD and he's a professional writer or something, that's one thing, but the average person, if it's a serious issue that they really want, they should get an attorney. And I don't know how you can say that to people without hurting their feelings or feeling that you're calling them stupid or something, but those questions are difficult to answer.
Yeah.
And to me, you should get a professional. And like, even myself, if I was to go down to Wells or Algonquin, one of those towns down there, I would have my attorney do it.
Well, and you know, a lot of people can't afford an attorney. I mean, just kind
Well,
of,
if they can afford the $150, that's an hour with an attorney. I mean.
yeah, but then they can't afford our application fee. I'm just saying, some people really scrimp and save to get that $150.
We're trying to do away with that $150.
You are? Yeah.
Well,
would
that
very
might be helpful, especially in
So
Lebanon.
considering you can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think if if you've already paid your, like for a building, whatever it is for your building, permit application or whatever, if you already paid for that and you're denied, personally, I think
$1,000 or something.
the next valid step would be to come here.
Nice house,
And,
I
and I don't think it should be discouraged if people really wanna come, but by outpricing it, you know.
You gotta have some costs covered,
Right.
otherwise everybody would just be running in here, but.
Right,
you gotta
I
make
understand that, yeah.
realistic.
Yeah, but if they're already paying for it,
I think we should try to write something like that makes people see that this is a serious thing and it's not easy. Because, they'll just spend their money and time and stuff and.
I nominate you.
Yeah, I can write up some stuff. Like I said, I'll get my attorney and borrow
Yeah.
some, see if I can get out of
See if it will help. And then just email it to everybody, we can all look at it, we can discuss it when we come in on March 11th. See if we can't fix that, cause I really think that that's a big part of the problem. Is that,
Yeah, a little bit, we can do it, make it even better,
yeah,
it's worth it.
Now, do you feel the selectmen, I'll just ask you directly, do you feel the majority of the selectmen really are serving the people and wanting to make it simpler? Or are they just legalistic and blocking things?
I don't picture this board being that way.
I know, I mean, I'm just asking, I'm not saying.
No, I know.
He's here helping us tonight, I think that says a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think.
I came and I said, what are you doing here, you get stuck babysitting us?
It's like anything else, there's always miscommunication. It's hard to work that out.
Yeah, it is.
No, I'm glad that you came, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I just don't wanna overstep my bounds either. I don't want it to force myself into your thoughts.
I think the difficulty is to know, what the town can do legally. You don't wanna run up a legal bill, getting people
So we
sued.
read that.
Yeah.
Lord knows you don't need any more of that.
But you don't really know, back in the day when I was, people said what they wanted, when they wanted, and there was nothing much said, but now everybody's so critical of everything, and Sue happy, I mean, it's.
Well, and that's
It's hard to
another
know
thing
what
too,
you
is,
say.
if I don't wanna have to restrict. I mean, we have like an agenda, like they speak first, he speaks next, and, I don't wanna have to restrict, board members from speaking their mind, and I don't think, I don't feel we should have to take turns or whatever, but, obviously if people felt that they weren't being heard, I would want you guys I would want each one of you individual people to say something to me so that I could
We
remedy
need a
that.
talking
so
stick.
that,
Let me-
I will not use a gavel, I'm telling you that right
No, we
now.
don't-
I'll use my hand on the table, but I will not use the gavel.
That's easy button from Staples. The
I just think that's so rude. Bang, bang, bang.
the selectmen have a
Yeah, I know.
mechanism, or is it in the town charter or anything, where the selectmen can get together with a citizen on a private issue? And just the three selectmen and an individual, where they can just talk freely about something, like a problem. They do make things like
They
that.
call it executive session usually if it's something that they don't want public.
But there are only certain things that can be heard in an executive session. You can't just come in and talk about your neighbors clipping their dog's ears and
No,
the
I-
hair's blowing into your neighbor's yard. No, the executive session is very, very strict on the things that can be talked about.
Is there a list of things that can be talked about?
Yes, there is.
Well, anything we, but so the executive session, she's right, there is limited things.
Right,
But anything else would have to be public.
right.
But I mean,
How do you?
But for example, you could come in and you could, if Paul was here and he was working, on something on the team, you could come in and say, gee, Paul, can I sit down and have a talk with you? I mean, he can't make a decision on his own
Right.
because he's only one.
You'll do that?
Yeah,
No, I didn't know you could.
yeah, they
I
did
thought
that.
was.
They were all pretty good about that, actually, you could come in and sit down and have a chat with them, and then if they feel it's something that should come to the board, they can present it to the board without ever even using your name if they have to, so. But a lot of things have to be heard publicly, have to be motioned publicly, have to be discussed publicly, it's not supposed to be discussed privately,
Right,
yeah,
but there are some things that.
yeah, right. So, are we all done? Because I
Yeah, I'll
have
work
dogs
on,
to
I'll
walk,
work
I'm
on
late.
that little chore and see what I can come up with.
Yeah, I'll do some too, and then, we can, we can send emails back and forth, and my caution on that is to make sure that you include all the members of the board, cause we don't wanna, just be
If it's
you
in
talking,
reference to-
you talking.
Right.
Right, if it's in reference to board business, try to include all the members of the board, or even if you wanna send it to Jen, even if you just wanna send it to Jen, Jen will make sure, kinda like everybody sees it when she comes in, cause she's, she's not always working on appeals board business, but when she has a minute, she'll send it to everybody and probably to selectmen too, so,
Sounds good,
okay?
we can do that.
Alright, so we'll work on that over the next month and I'll let you know what I hear about that appeal coming in.
Yeah, 25-foot ramp, it seems excessive.
Well, it all depends on, all depends on the angle, on,
Elevation
yeah.
of your house makes.
We have to
sense.
that's why it's not good to talk about it beforehand, because
Right.
you're not supposed to have any preconceived notions, just wait and see it when it hits the table,
Okay.
so, because we don't know why. We can guess at it
No.
and we could be completely wrong, so that's why I really prefer I don't even try to look at it, I just look to make sure all the papers are there, and I hear it the same as you do, 9 times out of, and that's why the selectmen gave us Jen to handle like sending all to DEP and all of that stuff, is because I really, as the chairman, I'm supposed to see it when you see it, so,
Okay.
yeah, okay?
They gave me two.
We were so blessed the day they gave you to us, I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, we
Gotcha.
needed that, cause it takes away a lot of the questionable practices, pre-reading and pre-discussing and getting information from neighbors and friends, and it takes away all of that, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd probably come by and talk to you. Are you here every day?
Monday,
Mondays you're here?
Oh, wait a minute,
I'm here tomorrow.
we're motioning to close the meeting, Ari?
I'd say, yeah.
Yes, all in favor? Aye, thank you.
One thing you want to change.